We've got to have a catch-up, Guy, on what's happening with regard to the Gulf and the Iran war and everything over the last week. That just seems to, what would normally be a year in everybody else's time scan or time spans, seems to be like a week in his, doesn't it? And Trump and what's happening, because it all just so much. He's on Truth Social from the early hours of the morning, every morning, making these bizarre statements. None of them seem to have got, we've got cabinet government over here, haven't we? And you do hope that most of the time things discussed in cabinet, there doesn't appear to be any discussions at all over there. He just comes out.
I remember going to bed on Tuesday evening, I think it was, with a real sickening feeling after his, what was it? He's going to wipe out an entire civilization, which is, that sort of comment is unprecedented from an American president. It doesn't even touch the sides of previous aggressive comments.
No.
And I went to bed, I must admit, with that same feeling I got when the troops were amassing on the Ukraine border, Russian troops, and you just think, my goodness, what are people, the normal Iranian people, going to suffer, and what are we going to wake up to? And then, obviously, for better news on Wednesday morning. But crazy times.
But do you ever think? I mean, most people obviously would say that there was a negotiating ploy, but I don't know whether there was. And do you think he ever had the intention of going ahead with what he said? Because all the analysts are suggesting that by having made that statement, because he was talking about power plants, much the same as Putin, actually, in that regard, hitting power plants and
war crimes,
desalinization. But and that was, to announce it in advance, there's no getting away from the fact to have done it would have been a war crime. Exactly.
Well, there are rules of engagement which let's call them the allies, have to satisfy. And one of them would be to have to prove that these plants, bridges, whatever the infrastructure is actively participating in the war effort for the enemy. And then even then, there are rules of engagement. And I just wonder, and it would be difficult, but whether it's, is it General Kane, Major Kane?
General
Kane and his senior leaders, many of whom have changed, of course. How many of them will be saying in the background, come on, that's not what we're about. We can't do that. It's against our training. It's against our rule books. Because they're obviously complicit. They're complicit, aren't they?
Well, they would be held to account. Yeah. Although their commander-in-chief, or not their commander, their head of their department, Mr. Hegseth, is saying there are no rules of engagement anymore. We're not going to be hidebound by rules of engagement that we've had to listen to in the past.
He does say that, but whether he believes it or not, there are written down processes that the military have to go through in order to start striking infrastructure. I mean, we haven't mentioned desalination plants, but that accounts to, well, small m murder, doesn't it?
Allegedly. And that's what the Iranians were talking about, bombing the Saudis and the Gulf states' desalination plants, weren't they?
Yes, of course, it's a quid pro quo.
Yeah.
But, it didn't happen, or at least it hasn't happened yet. So we get to this point where, sorry, forgive me, we get to this point where that's okay.
He, whatever you want to look at it, I mean, it was fortunate, but his critics would say that it's a taco moment again, isn't it? That Trump always chickens out and he didn't go ahead with it, and he came up with this supposed agreement for a ceasefire that had been negotiated through the Pakistanis and they came out with this. All these, supposedly the Iranians had a 10-point plan and Trump had a 15-point plan, and they both rubbished each other's plans, and nobody knows what's particularly in this plan that they finally agreed on. But of course, we've got a hiccup here because we're now in a position where the Israelis and the Americans are saying that this plan didn't include a ceasefire in Lebanon, whereas the Iranians and the Pakistanis are saying, yes, it did. And we've got 2 weeks. Well, we've got less than 2 weeks. The 2 weeks was to sort out some sort of permanent agreement. But Trump's already saying that they're not adhering to the agreement that he signed up to. So where do you think we go? Is this a cock-up, or do you think this is...
I find it hard to believe. Was it J.D. Vance has been credited with sort of brokering this deal in some way? But I find it hard to believe that an issue such as, are we allowed to continue to bomb Lebanon. It's not a small issue, is it?
No.
I can't believe that was not part of the negotiations. It may have been one of those, well, we agree to differ ones, because in any negotiation, you're not going to all agree on anything. And whether it's brinkmanship, I don't know. What somebody said, and I think there's probably some truth in it, is one of the problems for the Iranian delegation is they obviously don't want to be seen because they become a target. So it's been quite difficult to have meaningful conversations. So there might be some reason why there'd be a confusion, but fundamentally, I can't believe something as important as continuing to bomb Lebanon, Hezbollah, or whomever was not discussed.
I'm with you on that, but I come at it from a slightly different angle. I think what's happened here is that the Americans, the Iranians, and the Pakistanis have effectively come to an agreement, and nobody's spoken to Netanyahu about what happens with Lebanon, and they've all come away saying, "Yeah, we've agreed all this." And I think even on the original night of this agreement, when it all happened, I think Trump was talking about an pan-wide ceasefire rather than just Iran. But then I think Netanyahu's got on the phone to Trump and said, we can't do this at the moment. We need a bit more time.
To quote Rutte, Trump's the daddy, isn't he? And at the end of the day, Bibi's not got Bibi may be a brilliant communicator, whether you like what he stands for or not, but he's not going to win that one. So, I think he'll have to toe the. If this is what's stopping peace and the Straits of Hormuz being freed up, then they'll resolve it. You wouldn't get this far, would you, and let this issue and nothing else be the stumbling block?
No. I mean, I agree with you that Trump is ultimately the man who makes the decisions, but I think he's been swayed by Netanyahu into giving him a little more time.
Yeah, he's convinced. Well, maybe it's that. Maybe he just wants to do as much damage as he can.
And it would appear that the last couple of days it's been a lot heavier, the bombing of Beirut, and it's
horrible, isn't it? I know that he'll argue, oh well, it's Hezbollah, isn't it? Are integrated and all the rest of it, but the poor normal people are suffering, and it's just horrible to watch.
And the Lebanese government are totally they don't want it. They don't want Hezbollah in their country.
No, It's a horrible problem. That poor country has been through so much, hasn't it? And it actually came back, didn't it, to being even on the tourist destination again. But anyway.
So some of the other things he said this week as well, he talked about bombing them back to the Stone Age, as we said.
Yeah.
He talked at one point, I don't know if you saw this, about if it were up to him, he'd stay there and take all their oil.
I didn't see that, but no.
But
nothing surprises me anymore. So
he thinks the American people want to come home, so he's going to do what the American people do. If it were him, he'd stay there and take all their oil.
Well, as far as I haven't seen him go there, so I don't know about that.
Well, no. And then he's talking about how he and the Iranians can set up a joint operation to earn money from tolls at the Straits of Hormuz. I mean, he just seems to come out with these quite bizarre statements. I mean, we still got. He's had a conversation with Keir Starmer last night. I don't know whether you saw.
I knew he had a conversation. There's been no readout of that, though, has there?
Well, the only readout there's been is that they apparently discussed how Britain was going to help with the reopening the Straits of Hormuz. It seems to be the old story that when it's all quiet, we'll go in and sort of monitor what's happening there.
There was a story about the Iranians advising shipping to go north, which basically means as close to Iran as possible to avoid a blob of mines, isn't it?
They've got two little islands, haven't they, up near the Iranian coast. Hormuz Island is one of them, and I can't remember. And they have our man on Sky was talking about that, wasn't he? The one with all the maps.
General Clark?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
We like him, don't we?
We like, yeah. He was showing us how
he's posh, but not too posh.
Yeah. They're busy, aren't they, those two? There's two of them, isn't there? Yeah. There's Michael Clark and there's Sean somebody or other, and they're sort of sleeping in the studio at the moment, I would imagine, aren't they? Almost on camp beds around the back of the maps.
Oh, the BBC guy who's about 9 foot tall. Him.
Who's that one?
Is that Sean? Oh, no, there's another one.
This is Sky. There's two Sky fellows. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, they're there. So He's talking about that, and we've got this 2-week deadline if the ceasefire holds, where goodness knows, I mean, everybody seems to be suggesting this is going to be a ceasefire similar to that which they've supposedly got in Gaza. When is a ceasefire not a ceasefire? You know, when you're continuing to, and then to add on to all of that, we've got obviously he's sending that famous firm of estate agents off to Islamabad.
Kushner and Witkoff.
Witkoff, Kushner and Vance, yeah. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Mr. Witkoff is the one who said they couldn't understand why the Iranians didn't just throw up their hands and give in the moment they start. I mean, they're off to that. But then we had this bizarre thing last night of Melania coming out and making this statement about Epstein. I know this doesn't fit in, but psychologically, why have they done that? I mean, we could talk for hours about that, I know, but there's a suggestion that that's to deflect attention away from either that or there's a story about
I must admit, I read that this morning and thought I'd missed something in the backstory because I hadn't heard anyone saying she had been deeply involved, other than the photographs of Trump, Stein, Maxwell and her at some party or other. So that reminds me of the old thing about, you know, when someone says, I definitely haven't been involved in this, your first thought is,
It's very strange, wasn't it?
Very strange. Yeah. But
it was an address to the nation. It was the same setting that Trump used to talk about.
Yeah. Double doors, all the rest of it. Business
very
suit,
serious.
All the rest of it. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's either something about to break there, which should be quite interesting because if he'll be, if there's a story that breaks in relation to her, then he's going to be tarred by association, isn't he, really? Because it would have been happening, whatever it is, would have been happening at the same time. But we'll no doubt find out. Or the other alternative is that some people are suggesting this is again to drag attention away from what's happening in the Gulf to domestic matters to try and
as horrible as the Epstein affair is, nothing will get ahead of the Gulf story. Nothing.
So anyway, we've covered we've covered what would normally be a year in a week, and we've covered it in 10 minutes. So we'll no doubt have a lot to talk about again next week.
Definitely.